I'm a simple man diagnosed with NPD, giving the facts about narcissistic personality disorder and things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, I forgot my glasses, so I'm going to put those on right now. But keep in mind, I'm no clinician, but I can only speak to my own experiences. And also, we have somebody who is has a condition about factor 1 psychopathy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is F5. Well, that's my username. I was invited to this meeting by Nameless earlier today. I thought it was interesting and I wanted to hear him out, so let's go.
All right. We also have another person here. I'm not sure if she wants to say her name or not, but she can also chime in and ask questions if she wants. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Dakota, and I'm a diagnosed ASPD as well, factor 2. So yeah, let's see.
So yeah, basically that. So I'm intrigued about the idea of like F5. Like, if you could describe basically how you experience your disorder and stuff like that, like, what would you describe factor 1 psychopathy as?
Um, it's I'd say it's a genetic version, or not version, but of sociopathy, something that you're born with. You're wired differently, but you still, it the environment that you grow up with still is a major contributor to what uh, to your personality, your behavior, how you experience feelings, emotions, and whatnot. Uh, you can still feel certain emotions, but you have a hard time feeling very deep, and you experience them very differently, and you see the world from like a different perspective, is what I would say.
I'm now like fucking. If I ever look down and I look like I'm not interested, it's not because of that. It's because I'm writing down shit I want to ask you. By the way, so I don't want that to come off as offensive. But what emotions like do you feel like you don't feel, or you feel in a different way than other people?
I could feel like, like joy, satisfaction. I could feel frustration, disgust, and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say it's exactly the same as the regular person would. It's, for me personally, it's very short-lived, and I can feel satisfied over something that I've accomplished, but it's very short-lived, and then I just think, what's next? And then I find something else to strive for. So I can experience that, but I don't really. It's very for a very short time.
So is that related to boredom?
Yeah, it's boredom is, I would say something that you suffer from with this, because I mean, if you're bored, then you can just get the craziest ideas and you can just carry them out because you're bored and you really want something to do. So if you do something that you've been doing for, I mean, a little while, maybe for a day, you get it, and then you find something else to do because you've now gotten this and you don't have anything else to focus on, so you just carry on with something else.
Interesting. So like, because okay, I always have this metaphor for my fucking boredom. Because when you guys talk like ASPD people, when you guys talk about it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that must be way worse than mine. Is I always describe it as you're in a room with nothing but like three like games to play. Um, like I don't know if games is the right word for it, but it's like after like 10 years, you've played these games a billion times and it gives you no pleasure. And like, that's what everything feels like. Would you say that's accurate at all?
I mean, if you do the same thing over and over again, you will want, stimulation and
Yeah.
variation. That's at least how it is for me. Because if I do the same thing over and over again, I will want to, change and alter.
Do you, so what kind of things give you stimulation in that way?
Trying new things, doing some things that I wanted to do for a while. So maybe it's something that I haven't been able to do or not just had the energy to. It's very different, but I would say it's probably doing new things, things that give you an adrenaline rush and stuff like that.
Things that give. Do you feel like adrenaline is like the thing that like kind of is the main driving thing that makes you not bored?
Yeah, adrenaline rushes. I'd say I'm very much of an adrenaline junkie because, like if you go on a roller coaster, you feel this, this rush. But after that, it's pretty much over. But you've had this, experience, and you would want to live it, do it again. But then eventually, when you've done enough times, you will want to do something else. So you'll move on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you feel like so? Do you have an example of what gives you an adrenaline rush?
Uh, it could be different, very different. But I would say probably something that I know I'm not supposed to do, but I do it anyway. And
Right.
yeah, and then like I can get away with it, and when I do, I just think like, wow, this is fucking amazing.
So it gives you pleasure that like you can get away with shit that like is it that other people can't get away with it, or just the fact that you got away with it despite the odds?
Yeah, it's pretty much both, because like, wow, I really just outsmarted this many people, and I got away with this and that. Like I outsmarted these people, and I'm better. Stuff like
Ooh,
that.
that's interesting. Okay, so like that actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask is about grandiosity, because I read a study once that basically implied that like what people call like grandiose narcissists or whatever, they're actually like psychopaths. They're actually psychopaths because psychopaths are grandiose, but like they genuinely believe in it. Would you call yourself grandiose?
I would probably do it because in certain ways I can. Maybe I'll walk into a room with people and I'll be like, wow, these people are so fucking bad. And I can just think of myself as so much higher than these people.
Yeah.
And if someone like beats me at something, say like a game or something, I'll just think of other ways that I would easily beat them, or I would find an excuse as to why I did not beat them.
Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. So you do have grandiosity. Do you have like because Dakota actually mentioned this to me right before now about hierarchical thinking. Do you view people in like a hierarchy where like there's people who are better than and less than, and that just kind of applies to everything?
Yeah, I see things as that because like people who have let's say retards, I view them as the lowest in the hierarchy, and then I can view myself as like the top of the hierarchy, and like just having power and be able to control others that are below me in that hierarchy.
So it's about control, not about like let's say I can't think of a good thing to talk about. Not about prestige or status, like not how other people see you, but just about like what you can control and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very much about being able to control things and having a lot of power over people, being able to tell them what to do and stuff like that.
So what makes that like stimulating for you?
It's if like for example, if someone is doing something and I want to be able to do something about that, I can, I can control others into doing that for me. Like a power trip, I can, manipulate the situation by being able to control others.
Interesting. Okay, that makes. See, that's the thing is like I follow you. Like the logic behind everything you describe. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But also, I'm like, wait, I don't feel motivated by that. Is kind of the stance I get to. Um, oh, here's a good question actually that I just thought of. So when I interviewed a sociopath, in quotes, like somebody else with ASP, um, I asked them like, why should my audience trust you? Right. And if you had to describe that, what would you say?
Um, that's a good question because there are a lot of people who like to fake having ASPD and being a quote unquote sociopath or psychopath for like a status, so people would view
Yeah.
you very differently from what you really are. And
Mm.
those people have made it very hard to believe those who actually have that condition, I'll say. So it's very hard to trust others, but those, I mean, those who trust me, I mean, they'll believe me. But I hope the major majority do. But I mean, there are still people who won't, obviously, because of people who, like, they've, I guess, slandered the image of ASPD because how much they fake having that.
Yeah. You feel like the most of the people who like claim to be like in quotes psychopaths are kind of not faking it, but like being almost dramatic about it. Like they I guess faking it, like being edgelords.
Yeah, that, and like they actually sometimes believe it themselves, like they didn't cry when their grandfather died or something like
Yeah.
that, and they're like, yeah, I'm a psychopath, or stuff like that. And then they walk around telling others that because they think of it as a status, or they'll get credit for having it, but they don't really realize that there are actually people who have it.
They don't know what like the reality of it is. They're just kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit callous, so I'm a
Yeah,
psychopath.
yeah, it's like that. They've watched a movie where there's like a killer, and they're like, oh, I'm like that person.
What would you say is like one of the biggest misconceptions about psychopathy?
That all psychopaths are killers or, batshit crazy. I mean, it's very glorified, I'd say, in
Yeah.
certain movies, and very many of them are idolized by, edge lords and stuff like that. So I'd probably say that, that they're all cold and they'll manipulate, they try to kill you and all that, when in reality, many of them are, either unaware or just trying to get by.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like, I mean, have you ever seen James Fallon? I think his name is.
Yeah, the guy who was like researching about
Yeah.
psychopathy, and then he found out that he was one himself.
Which I think he's a great example of like, oh yeah, this guy has just gone throughout life being like basically a fine person in society. Then one day he's like, oh, I'm a psychopath. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and I think, someone who's like that, can be like go through life and be like a normal person in society,
Yeah.
and then it's revealed that it's a psychopath or someone with ASPD, and then they're just an outcast, and no one will talk to you because of it, because of the major misconception over it all.
I mean, like, fuck, I relate to that just through narcissism, funnily enough, just because, like, oh, you're a narcissist? Now everything you do, I now view as manipulation because that's what narcissists do.
Yeah, it's very much like that, and there are a lot of, like people who claim to be professional psychologists in that because they've read on the internet what it is.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, God, yeah.
they put it in a very bad spotlight because, there are many examples of, people who do that. They make them seem like evil people. I mean, it's a very bad generalization of it all when it's not true at all. I mean, there are people who do it, but not all of them.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, like, it's like you have the capacity to do so many of these, like, awful things and stuff like that, but it's like, why would you do it half the time?
Yeah, because there are a lot of I watch, and then there's like many of these people they do that, and I just think that's pretty fucking stupid.
Like, you look at Ted Bundy and you're like, what an idiot. Why would he do that?
Yeah, I don't really see why you dedicate your whole life to just killing random people.
Wouldn't it be stimulating?
I mean, it would be a rush, but I mean,
But yeah, like I can see, like, because that's kind of my thing with it when it comes to like, okay, this sounds really weird, but when it comes to murder, it's like, why would you? I feel like 99.999% of psychopaths probably don't do anything like that because they're just kind of like people who are trying to just, be people, survive, and get money.
yeah, pretty much, just trying to get through life and make the best of it. And I forgot what I was gonna say. Fuck.
Don't worry, I have ADHD. It happens to me all the time. So here's an interesting thing that I feel like a lot of people also have misconceptions about. Do you feel like you're sadistic in any way?
I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I think everyone has like at least some sadistic tendency that they, can't help but feel. But I wouldn't say that I'm like sadistic overall, but I mean everyone has, their tendencies. Like I can enjoy doing something I say that I can think like, most people wouldn't enjoy this, but it's whatever, I guess. But I wouldn't really say I go out of my way to just do something to someone because I think it's fun. I do it if I, have to, if it can benefit me. I'm just not like, oh, I'm gonna hurt this person because I can, and why not?
Yeah, that makes sense because you don't enjoy hurting people for the sake of hurting people.
No, it's I mean I can do it if it's necessary, and maybe when I do it I can like enjoy it because, oh well, fuck this person, I enjoy doing that. But I won't just see this random person and be like, go up and harass them because I think it's fun. I mean, if it benefits me, then I could do it.
Do you feel like you enjoy it when it's like vengeful? Like, oh, this person wronged me, so
Yeah,
I'm going to like
definitely.
get them back. Yeah, okay.
That's one of the
Because
moments
it's
when I can
relatable.
do it.
And because like you had a when we were talking like a while like a couple like a week or two ago, I think a week ago or something like that, you mentioned actually you should tell that story again.
Oh yeah,
About when you yeah.
what about the friend?
Yes.
Yeah, that. Well, you know, I was just sitting at home, and then he called me, and I thought me and his friend were on good terms because we used to be really good friends like a while back and hang out a lot. So he called me and said that if he wanted to hang out, and I said sure. So he told me to go like to this place where it's pretty dark, and I thought, okay, well that's weird. So I started going there, and when I got there, I was like, this is fucking really quiet, and he's generally a pretty loud person. So then I saw there was like a spotlight down the street, or like a street. It was like I don't know what it's called, but and there was like a spotlight, and I saw two guys walking there, like they were dressed in dark clothing, and I was like, okay, well there we go. And then I walked out of there because he said we were going to be alone. So I just walked out of there. I called him and I was like, nice try, but fuck you. And then I just hung up. And I still see him sometimes, and when I walk by him I just kind of stare at him. But I mean, I don't really hate him or anything like that because I just don't really get why I would. But if he tried anything like that again, I would just deal with it at that moment. But now I just like, okay, well he tried and he failed, you know.
See, that's the thing is that like you don't have any sort of like vengeful like feelings about him like at all. Like you're like not you don't want to go out of your way to well maybe not go out of your way, but if you had the chance like fuck him over, would you?
I mean, it really depends because, I think he nearly died maybe like 2 months ago because he was like drinking and then he was like left out in the cold or something like that. And then I saw that on like his Snapchat story and I was like, oh, well, that's a shame you didn't die. But I wouldn't really go out of my way to actually like harm him. I'm just like, when it happens, I'll take pleasure from that moment. But I mean, I just wouldn't really waste my time on him because it's just, I can't be bothered really.
You just like don't care enough for it.
Yeah, because he's tried stuff, but I mean he just fails over and over again. I was kind of shove it in his face each time, and I was like, oh well, you're really fucking bad, and I just outsmart him every time because his ploys are just like really fucking apparent. When he tried to go get me to go to that really dark place at like 10 p.m., I was like, okay, well this is weird enough, and then I saw two guys walking. I was like, okay, well you're dumb. I saw them.
Just I love that your reaction isn't this piece of shit tried to like basically mug me or jump me or whatever. You're just kind of like, wow, you're so dumb for like trying to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty much my reaction over it. I was just like, Jesus Christ, if you're gonna do it, then you should actually try to plan it, not just do it like that.
I'm sorry. Like when like I'm just amused by like your like inner cognition is like so interesting to me because it's like you just like there's just like this hilariousness in the fact that like, oh, it's not that I'm mad about this, it's that you're just so fucking stupid for like even trying.
Yeah, it is very funny, but it just I don't know. I just don't really know, like, get the feeling of hating, I guess, because if I'm gonna hate someone, then they need to have like really wronged me several times. Like if it was a good like a person I consider close and they like betray me, backstab me, and whatever, like that. But he wasn't really a good friend at the time. I mean, I used to be friends with him, but we kind of grew apart, and he tries that. And I just think like, okay, well, you're dumb. But if it was someone really close to me, then I could get a little more upset about it. But it really depends who it is. But if it's just
Do
someone
you
like him, I just think like you should plan things better, man.
so do you value loyalty a lot?
Um, it depends. I mean, if it if I was presented with like an opportunity to like say I could cheat my loyalty on someone for a certain thing, that's worth it, I would do it. But I do consider like I do value loyalty from others, but I don't really value my own loyalty to other people.
Oh, gotcha. So, like, what do you feel like would be worth betraying loyalty for?
Say this person has a bad like an say an enemy, and this enemy of this person has like standing somewhere. He offers me a good deal, like I could you know join him and get power and stuff like that. If I betray this person, then I would do it because that's very beneficial for me. But the thing is, it's very weird because I don't value my own loyalty at all. I mean, important, but I do value like friends around me. I do think that they should be very loyal to me.
Yes. So, when you say you value friends around you, do you value their loyalty or them as people?
Their loyalty.
So, do you feel like you like care about people?
Uh, I mean, I could be friends with someone and I could, want them to do well. But if they were like going through depression or a tough time, I could be like, okay, well, and they come to talk to me. I could be
Yeah.
like, oh, well, you feel better. It'll be better soon. But I wouldn't really lose sleep over their cause. I'd be like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. And then I can, but it doesn't affect me personally because, I mean, it just it doesn't really matter too much to me as long as it doesn't like become my problem. But if it's their own problem and they try to talk to me about it, I can just, like, okay, well, feel better. And then, feel better anyway, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I get it. It's like, no, I get what you mean. Yeah, it's just, it's interesting. I'm like, kind of like, because like, I feel like, do you feel like people are like, people, if some, like, do you feel like people in your life are scared of you because of this
Uh,
when they know about it, at least?
there are probably some who have realized it, like my closest friend. I don't really feel the need to act too much, like put on a personality for him. But I still do to some extent because, just in case, he doesn't agree with something I say, I just like, okay, well, better to avoid that and, do that because, I mean, it's more beneficial than if I do that. I just consider these um, options of how a person sees you. And it goes for family, friends, and everyone.
Have you ever regretted anything that you did, like probably related to your psychopathy?
Like something I've done in the past that's harmed someone, or
Yeah, sure. Or like, I guess, have you ever felt remorse?
uh, no, but I would say that if something I do fucks up for myself, like I do something and like, oh fuck, that really did damage on myself, like I did that and I lost 4 friends, or I lost this and that. Like I do something and I lose stuff. Then I could be
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I should have used a different approach, or I could be like, oh
Yeah.
well, I should have probably waited with doing that. But I don't really feel anything remorse other than that. Not that I can really think of.
Does it bother you that you're like, do you ever like feel like, oh, I'm like this, and that kind of sucks that I'm like this? Like, is there any sort of like, oh, I wish I was like normal people?
No, I'm very comfortable with myself, and the thing is, until 2021, I think, like summer 2021, I thought I was, like most people were. I guess I wasn't self-aware in a way, so I
Yeah.
just kind of went with my life. I thought I was like everyone else. I mean, I knew I had like difference with the feeling than other people do, but then I realized, like, as I started to talking to more people who know about this stuff, I just kind of realized that, oh well, no, that's not really the case. But now that I know, it doesn't really bother me, because I mean, I live my life the same way as I did before. Just now that I know, I'm more self-aware now, and I can better my ways and how to work with people to get what I want and stuff like that. Before, it was just kind of like naturally on instinct on how people work. But now it's, I do it, like I know more what I'm doing now, if that makes sense.
So basically, you're more grateful for the fact that you're self-aware, just for the fact that like you can do what you want to do better.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, I relate a little bit. That's funny. Um, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know why I keep like finding it. Like, I'm not trying to insult you or anything like that. Just like I find it amusing, just based on like how you operate. Because I'm like, oh, I get it. I get how like being more aware of how other people act will get my own goals like easier, right? Like, I'm a narcissist, so I'm like, but I'm what's the like, for example, I will like try to talk to friends to make them feel better, because it makes me feel better that they're like validating me and stuff like that, right? So I relate in certain ways, but also just like the fact that it's so material, like you're just like so much more rational, I feel like, than me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I don't really mind if you're laughing. I get it's like an amusing kind of thing.
Yeah, because it's not like I'm laughing at you. It's more of like, I don't find it. It's not ridiculous. I find it like, um, I'm trying to think of a good word for it. I'm sorry that I'm not like being um very articulate right now. Somebody keeps texting me and I'm like, oh god, I hope that's not something bad. But but it's like, it's just like, I find it so interesting, but at the same time I find it so like, because you're so point blank about it, and you don't really care about the fact that like, oh, other people may be like freaked out by it and stuff like that. Does the idea of other people like viewing you like this like bother you at all?
Like if it's just their opinion of me that changes, like they've known me for a few years, and then they get to know them, and they just like kind of cut me off. It's not really their opinion that matters to me. I don't really care about that. It's if this person was valuable to me and now they've stopped talking to me, it's harder for me to accomplish my goals regarding this person. But if it's their opinion alone, then no, it, I don't really care too much. But yeah, if it's something I needed from them, and then they're like, "Wow, you're really, crazy," I guess. And then I just think like, okay, well, fuck, no, I can't get that thing. But if they start talking to others like, oh, don't associate with that person, then it's it can possibly screw up future associates, connections. So then I can just like contact this person. I just kind of talk to them, and then I just intimidate them, I guess, I antagonize them, even scare them, frighten them, and so they would stop doing that. Because when they walk around telling people, it's really bothering, not because, people will, oh, wow, okay. But if it's like that person, knows someone, and now that person knows that, and then, it just keeps on spreading, and it ruins their image of you, and they won't, talk to you, and that person could have been valuable.
Interesting. Have you ever been motivated by anything that wasn't around material gain?
Like, what do you mean? Something emotional or?
Yeah, like I guess I have a hard time articulating, like talking about it as well. Um, like anything that didn't have to do with like gaining something. Do you feel like you have ever been motivated by?
Uh, Not really. It's very motivated by something materialistic or something that can help me get forward or give me something that I want. But I can't really remember doing anything uh, that isn't for my own benefit if I think about it. Because if I do something, I contact a certain person, then it is for like, I'm motivated for some reason because I need something from this person. And if I'm just, like try to fit in a social circle, it's because then I have some people to talk about and I can get to know others through these people. So it's either materialistic or connections, and that can, get me, that's beneficial for myself.
So, here's a weird question. What do you feel like your motivation is for doing this interview then?
I just found it pretty interesting because it's a first time for me, other than,
Yeah,
therapists and stuff like that. So I just found it pretty interesting that someone wanted to interview me. So I just thought, why not?
interesting. Okay, so it was just kind of like a stimulating thing, more or less.
Yeah, and I'm available this evening, so I just thought, okay, well, I have time, so why not?
Hmm, interesting. Do you feel like you do a lot of things like that? It's just like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so fucking let's do it.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that, like I voice call with people. I can, just go out and hang out with someone. It's like a stimulation thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm very bored, and then I'm just like, okay, well, I have time for this, so I can just do it, just to like pass the time. If I find something interesting, I can do it, just stuff like that.
That's so interesting. Do you so like okay, here's a question I have. Like, do you feel like there's like let's take like a sociopath person, right? How would you like in quotes like somebody with ASPD that has factor two psychopathy as opposed to what presumably we can't say for sure, but for you has factor one psychopathy? What would you say like the biggest difference is?
I'd say probably their like environmental, like their how their environment contributed to them.
Hmm.
Because my childhood was very, it was fairly chill, good parents, friends, and stuff like that. But I have, through my childhood, there have been like certain moments that have been like, oh, that's pretty fucked up. But I don't really consider them like a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
It's just like I think back to that and I was like, okay, well that happened, it doesn't matter now, and then I like just move on and stuff like that. So I'd probably say it's the environmental effect on that sociopaths have, opposed to myself, because I don't really have that thing where I get affected personally, or like my behavioral pattern or stuff like that, how I experience things from my own environment. So that's probably one of the major differences that I can see.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. Um, the what I really find interesting is like your indifference towards everything. Do you feel like there's things that like you that make you like not? I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. It's just like what Is there any like okay? Let's say why would you for example, why would you get into a relationship, right?
It could be, this can get me somewhere. I could spend my time with this person if I'm bored. Sex, stuff like that. Something, past the time, I guess. And, just
Mm.
regular stuff like that. Is probably one of the things. Um, and company if I ever want it, but it's not really that's why. It's mostly just I could pass the time with this person when I'm bored, do stuff with this person. That person can get me friends with these people, uh, i- stuff like that. I'd say.
So it's like there's no even. Do you have a desire to connect with people?
Um, I don't really know. I mean, I can talk to people and we can get along, but I've never felt a connection to this person like people in my family, like my mom or dad. I talk to them, we get along and stuff like that, but I've never felt a connection with that person.
Do you, for me, I kind of envy the people who can just like connect to people naturally. Do you feel any sort of like, oh, like I would love to if I could, sort of idea?
Not really, because, I've dealt with people like that before who have a really hard time, like when they connect with people, they're really attached. And I just think like, God, what a fucking hassle to have to, deal with being this attached to that person because of this connection. So I wouldn't say that I envy those. I'd probably say that I'm very relieved that I don't have to deal with that. I can just, like move on from things that I don't want to deal with anymore.
That's fucking fascinating. I'm also like sitting here being like, man, a lot of people are going to be hearing. So, like, how do you feel like this interview is going? Because, like, I'm sitting here being like, man, I'm here trying to destigmatize personality disorders, and when you talk about this, I'm like, man, a lot of people are going to be like, fucking, like, they're not going to relate, and they're going to be maybe find it almost. They might dehumanize psychopaths for that reason, right? So, how do you feel about that? Like the fact that this may not be constructive to the idea of like humanizing you.
I mean, these people don't know me, they know the name F5 and they've heard my voice, but they don't really know who
Mm.
I am. So if
Okay.
they want to, dehumanize psychopathy and stuff like that, ASPD, then they're very welcome to. But I just think that they're wasting their own time by doing that.
Interesting. Do you have any motivation to destigmatize psychopathy?
Um, Not really. I just, it annoys me when people are slow with that, they consider themselves good with this, in this area, but still they constantly dehumanize ASPD and numerous other, personality disorders, despite claiming, that they're professionals and
Mm.
unbiased. And so I just kind of like want to show, prove like, because it's a thing for myself, like, you're very wrong about this, and just kind of prove that it's, I understand far more than these people do.
Yeah.
And, by doing, by talking about it, how I am and stuff like that, then, I show people that, people aren't, people with the personality disorders are not, you know, evil in nature. They were made this way, or they were born this way. So it's kind of like I prove to myself and other people that I am, I understand far more than these people do.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Do you? Okay. So like, I have one more question. I want to see if Dakota or I don't want to say their name if they don't want me to, but have any questions. But do you feel like you're a bad person?
No, I wouldn't. People think they're funny when they call others things,
Yeah.
labels like, that you're a snake or other things like that. I just think that I'm smart because I work for my own benefit and I'm
Yeah.
very good at doing that. I guess I would say that I'm an opportunist because I take very good advantage of opportunities that are presented to myself, and I feel like many people do not do that enough, and by in order to because they don't do it, then they don't understand what it's like. So they you're a snake or you're just like that, and I just think of it as I work for my own benefit for my own good. So no, I would not say that I'm a bad person.
Awesome. Okay, I love that. Two more things. Do we want any more questions from our quote unquote audience? Like Dakota, I see you unmuted yourself. You can say something if you want.
All right, so I'm gonna look at in a different perspective.
Mm.
I kind of see it in like a pragmatic rationality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So pragmatic people, and people refer it as like wrong, morally wrong. But what's bad? What's evil? What's good? It changes even according to the centuries. Like in the past, Spartan times or whatever, it was like good to throw babies off the cliffs.
Yeah.
But right now, it's wrong. So it's kind of like society decides that. It's kind of like depends on the century.
Yeah,
Some,
I've actually wait. Were you finished?
some like we are kind of like pragmatic people. What's like um, it's like if it suits our rationality, then we're like okay, that's good. So I don't really care about evil and good, if you ask me. I just care about what I deem as pragmatic.
I think it's a
Yeah,
beautiful way to say it, honestly. Yeah.
yeah. I've actually been thinking about that. Like back in like maybe the medieval times or like the times of the Roman Empire and stuff like that. They were like really bad people as leaders. That did really like, I guess evil things. Um, and no one really bat an eye to that. Because it was very normalized in their society. So I believe that uh, there's been a very different perspective, and the perspective of evil and good has changed very much over time. So now it's very bad to, like, for example, kill an animal, then you're just an evil individual. But if you did it back then, it was just like, okay, well, that's pretty normal behavior. So it's like Dakota says, where I think we have a very pragmatic mindset, to where we don't really consider good and evil important factors. We just do things, and I feel like that's very relatable to myself, because I don't really care too much about the details like that. I just kind of do things that I deem myself as that I see as important, good for myself and stuff like that. So that, yeah, she made a very good point.
No, I agree. I agree because it's like, oh, you're working for your own self benefit. Like to some degree, everybody else is. It's like, yeah, that you might be doing it to help your loved one and stuff like that, but also you're doing it because it makes you feel good to act for your loved one and everything. It's like just because you have a different means doesn't make you wrong.
Yeah, like everybody works for themselves, their own benefit in a way, and to help their loved one to you know do something that they like. And just because we have a different approach to that, like myself, doesn't mean that we're bad people because we do it. We just have a different we see it from a very different perspective of how you can do it and how it's done, because we don't really consider morals and that kind of stuff like an important thing. Like if I read something like, oh, someone did this, is that unethical? And it's like, why is that really that important? If you can do this, it helps you and say your cause, then you should do that, because I mean, what's wrong with it? So
Yeah.
in a way, everybody works for themselves. Just that we do it in a very different way to than other people do, and people decide to like, oh, that's evil, but I mean, I just don't really think it is. It's just we have a different way of doing things.
That's
It's just
awesome.
like people are motivated by altruistic motives, right?
Yeah.
So as you said, like, okay, maybe I'm like exaggerating, whatever. Maybe they're gonna think that I'm wrong. But I feel like even a mother, when she gives that love, in quote unquote, to her child, it's kind of like she feels good. I feel like it's kind of like, you know, how do you say, egoistical maybe? I don't know.
It's all for selfish gain to some degree, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not always going to work. I mean, you can do, I guess people, can help someone, work to help someone else. But in the end, you also work for your own benefit more than you do for others. And like people go to work for money, that's working for their own benefit. Even if, you work in like, uh, I don't know, how you work at a hospital, then you help people for a living, but you still do it in the end for your own gain because you make money from doing that. And so in the end, everybody is egotistical, but just we are to a different, we're on a different level. So yeah, I think she made another very good point with that.
I agree. So I'm going to wrap this up here, but if you have any closing, because I think this is honestly a great way to fucking end it off. But if you have any closing thoughts, feel free to say them right now.
I would like to go back to the first um, question that you had about impulsivity and boredom.
Oh, yes.
I want to say something about it. That we are so bored that we even risk our safety, our lives. And people think that we only hurt other people, but it's in the symptom criteria that we hurt ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
like, it's like,
um,
no, I don't know. Let me tell you something. I don't know how I'm still alive because I have been in a situation like I'm not suicidal or anything. Like I want to live. But you're just living at the moment that you don't really think about the consequences.
yeah, I actually have a story regarding that because, when I was younger, I used to like, there was this really big container, I guess, um, where people left their things, and you could find really good stuff, but it was also very dangerous because there was sharp stuff. So we would just climb over the walls and walk around in there. And there were people who were like, you weren't allowed to be there, but we went anyway. And there was a time where there was a guy who came, but we hid, and he started like throwing back stuff at us, and it hit like my neck, I think, and it was like really close to hitting my head. So through boredom and I guess carelessness, we do to some degree risk our safety quite a lot, sometimes more than we risk others. And the thing about that is, I can like, if I'm gonna the time I went back after that happened, I was like, okay, that happened last time, but this time it's going to be different. So I remember past experiences, but I just kind of brush it off to the side because I think sometimes I think I know better, and I did that, but now I'm gonna do it differently, and I do the exact same thing again, because oh well, it didn't work the first time, so it might work the second. Yeah, and it's just stuff like that. um yeah, that kind of impulsivity, I guess.
I love that. That's so
It's just,
fascinating.
it's just I want people to understand that ASPD is not something to be glorified. right?
Yeah.
As F5 said, like people come there and they're like, I have ASPD. I'm like this, that. They think it's some like tough persona, like
Yeah.
a strong persona, but it's really not.
It wouldn't be a disorder if it was just like I have no emotions and I feel great all the time. I'm awesome.
I mean,
No, it like puts you in harm's way.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you don't have
Because
emotions, probably you have like major depression or schizoid personality disorder
Yeah.
because we do have emotions, but just like more less than other people. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just very many who like they're new to the psychology field, I guess. New to this stuff, and they like take a test, this psychopath test with like 5 questions, and
Yeah.
then it comes out like high, likely psychopath. And it's just like, oh wow, I'm a psychopath, stuff like that. But what they don't realize is, that it's something that you live with your entire life, and
exactly.
very many people with ASPD, I guess they very many die young because they put themselves in harm's way very much because of their impulsivity, their ambitions and goals, and things they strive for, because they don't really have the same consequential thinking than other people do. So people think it's like, oh, these people don't have any emotions, so they're really cool, they get through life easy, when
Yeah.
it really is, um it's a curse, I guess, to some extent, to some people who have it, because they're really impulsive, aggressive. They get into fights a lot and stuff like that, and it's I mean, that shit can get you fucked up, like really bad. But people focus on oh, they don't have any emotions, so they're really cool people.
That's the only thing they talk about. They're like, oh, they don't have any emotions, they don't have fear. That like and that's not the thing that causes issues.
Yeah, it really isn't. I mean, to some extent, it contributes to that behavior, but in the end, it's just very like inconsequential thinking,
And
that uh, that's really the thing. And the carelessness for the how it can punish themselves, and boredom and stuff like that, but they just focus on, oh, they don't feel any emotion, so they are all killers and stuff like that, because
yeah.
people don't really care enough to read thoroughly about the disorder. They just kind of read the surface, which is, oh, they don't have any.
I mean, yeah, like that's literally a thing with like most personality disorders is that like they don't fucking give a shit. They're just kind of like, oh, I have an ex that I think has the disorder, and I'm going to look on the internet. Oh, look, this article says they're an evil demon. Okay, that's all I need to know.
Yeah, and this is like, oh, I had this ex, they broke
Yeah,
up with me, they must be a psychopath.
right.
They're not. They're not, darling.
Yeah, they're probably not. I would
They're
put
not.
money.
Yeah, and it's on, like, I think it's a meme, I guess, whether like how normal people do things, how psychopaths do things. It's like people really think that. I mean, I guess I get that it's a meme, like a joke. It's supposed to be funny, but people don't really understand at all. They think, like we're aliens who have just arrived at Earth,
Mhm.
trying to fit into society. But we know how humans function because we are humans ourselves. We're
Exactly.
just wired differently, and we interpret things differently. But we're still people who
I mean,
know.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because I agree, like, with every personality disorder and even like things like autism, it's like, yeah, we're still fucking people. We're just fucking our brains are fucked up.
Yeah, because it's like we think very differently, but we're still people, and others often forget there's like they try their hardest to really dehumanize. Because I
Yeah.
watched like a video about malignant narcissism, I think it was. It was a Swedish video, and she said that it was pure evil. This is everyone with this, they're pure evil, they're demons,
Yep.
they're not people, and they will try to harm you in every possible way they can, because that's how they were made. You know, it's just like you don't know anything.
I mean, let me.
No, literally. Yeah. I mean, I get comments like that all the time. It's like, you're possessed by demons. I'm like, okay, probably not.
Yeah, and it's just like
It's like
you
we
know,
don't care about you that much, okay? Like, if you think that, we won't put effort into it, you know,
Yeah.
that much.
yeah, and it's there are obviously people with ASPD who don't really care to fit into the social norm. They just kind of go on with their life. Um, but the majority do their best to blend in.
Yeah.
And like myself, I do my best to work with other people and make them see me as something I'm not. Like I observe a social situation, I can sit like and watch others. Now they're talking to me, and they're like telling me things. I like nod, and I'm like, yeah, I get what you mean, and I just kind of build this personality around that person. Um, so it's we're not like aliens, like people wanna believe, and a lot of times where people are like, oh, psychopaths and narcissists and sociopaths are all evil. It's just because that one person had that one bad experience with that one, let's say
Yeah.
narcissist, and then they're like, they
Or
generalize
someone they
all
perceive
of
as a
them.
narcissist. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, Putin does that and he's a major narcissist. So every narcissist thinks like this person, It's stuff like that. They don't really know anything, but they've heard that label before being used in a bad spotlight, so they decide to do it again.
Yep. I agree. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up here because my phone is literally about to die and I'm kind of worried that this recording will get lost if I don't wrap this up. But thank you guys for coming on. Everybody, thank you for watching. Nameless Narcissist here. Take your fucking meds, please. I can figure out how to stop the recording. There we go.